The call is to the member for Werriwa.
This is a time of the year where we recognise the issue of schizophrenia in our society, and more particularly this year, carers are the focus. Whilst it is noted that people as diverse as Vincent van Gogh, Virginia Woolf, Sir Winston Churchill, Tolstoy, Beethoven suffered from mental illness, the reality is that 60% of carers and sufferers in our society have experienced a negative and offensive attitude from others because of the issue of mental illness. It's worth noting that as many as 30% of Australian carers don't tell people outside their immediate circle because of a sense of guilt that they feel is there in the society and stigma. In most OECD nations, and that's where we should compare ourselves to, 12 to 16% of the health budget is spent on mental health services. In Australia, it is currently less than 8%, which is an indictment of both sides of politics. It's historic, it's not created by either political party. And the Mental Illness Fellowship notes that Australia is spending less than 50% of what it should be on illness that is largely treatable, with a recovery to a good quality life possible for most of those involved. Whilst it is not an issue that is positive either side of politics, I don't think that the decision this week to cut $54 million from the Partners in Recovery program, providing support to people living with severe and persistent mental illness with complex support needs, was a helpful measure. Quite frankly, in a society where as many as 230,000 Australians have schizophrenia, affecting 4 people in their immediate circle, we have some kind of sense of how large an issue this is in our society. And I've got to say, whether it was a principal at a school last week, whether it's a leading Australian journalist, whether it is people who come to my office trying to overcome the issues of Centrelink payments and disability pension, I get the impression that they are very real figures, that we often don't see it, but when it affects our families, it is a very pressing issue. I want to turn to an association in my own electorate, Beautiful Minds, and that's appropriate in this week when we're looking at what people are doing around schizophrenia and carers. Established in 2004, it recently gained the prestige. It has gained the New South Wales State Mental Health Matters Award, and is a group where 4 out of 10 members are in their 80s, the oldest being 87. And yet, despite that age correlation, they've paid for excursions, they've renovated backyards, they've made submissions to government inquiries, they've refurbished a local health community centre, they've helped renovate the Waratah Gardens at Campbelltown Hospital. They are capable of a very competent fundraising each year, which attracts very significant local support. So, as I say, in this week of schizophrenia, I want to recognise the work of carers, the struggles they have, the degree of discrimination they feel they suffer in society, and the very dramatic problems they face. I want to turn now to the question of youth unemployment, not assisted in my electorate in the far edge of Sydney by the drastic, extreme cuts in rail expenditure by the current government. In Western Sydney, youth unemployment is significantly higher than the state average, 11.8%. It's actually 15.4% in South West Sydney. And Youth Connections is an organisation, is an activity which helps at-risk young people in Western Sydney engage with education and employment. Despite the fact that 39% of the people involved with Youth Connections are in the most disadvantaged socioeconomic index of areas quintile compared to 13% of the total population, it's been indicated that Youth Connections, which deals with people presenting with complex and often multiple barriers to education, 68% of the participants have achieved a positive or progressive outcome. Approximately 6,300, or 62% of the Indigenous participants, recorded progressive outcomes. The internationally recognised SROI evaluation of the Partnership Broker Scheme has indicated that for every $1 invested by the Australian government, partnership brokers have been the catalyst for up to $5.50 of created social value. They have the School Business Community Partnership Brokers program, focusing on building partnerships to help young people achieve Year 12 or equivalent qualifications. And yet I'm sad to note that I'm sad in noting that in this budget, of course, that has went by the board in support for a very significant necessary assistance to young people facing unemployment. They're not going to be assisted by forcing on the dole for 6 months. They're not going to be helped by not getting money for a longer period. any welfare payments. They're going to be assisted by brokerage operations like this, work between schools and organisations to actually help them get skills and ability. That's the way forward, and I recognise the very worthwhile measures that up till now have been undertaken.